You've probably picked up this book because something isn't quite right. Maybe you're successful by many standards, yet you can't shake the feeling that you're stuck in a loop. Always busy, always cautious, always safe, but rarely fulfilled. You sense there's something bigger waiting for you, something beyond the predictable confines of your comfort zone. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Fear is secretly shaping your choices, cleverly disguised as logic and responsibility. It whispers reasons to wait, to reconsider, to play small. Fear convinces you that clarity will come if you just delay a bit longer, that the right moment is somewhere off in the future. It traps you in survival mode, leaving you busy but never truly progressing toward the life you deeply desire. This book is your guide to confronting that fear head-on, transforming it from an obstacle into fuel. It's about escaping the addictive loop of survival mode, reclaiming your power, and actively building the life you've dreamed of but haven't yet dared to pursue. In these pages, you'll learn to recognize when fear masquerades as logic, discover practical strategies to act boldly in uncertainty, and reshape your identity into someone who thrives on courage and growth. We'll break down the barriers keeping you locked in place and introduce you to powerful, actionable frameworks designed to propel you forward. Not someday, but today. It's time to stop merely surviving. Your ideal life isn't going to appear, you must build it, choice by choice, act by act. Your future is waiting. Let's start building it now. Chapter 1. Breaking the Loop. The most dangerous lie you tell yourself sounds perfectly reasonable. I'll start when I'm ready. You've been saying it for months, maybe years. Different words, same poison. After I get more clarity. When the timing's better. Once I have a solid plan. Each phrase feels logical, responsible even. But here's what's really happening. You're trapped in a loop that trades your potential for the illusion of safety. This isn't about motivation. It's not about finding your passion or waiting for inspiration to strike. This is about recognizing the sophisticated enemy that's been sabotaging your progress while wearing the mask of wisdom. The sophisticated saboteur. Fear doesn't show up wearing a hockey mask and carrying a chainsaw. It arrives in a business suit, speaking the language of prudence and responsibility. It whispers things like, "Let's be realistic here, and maybe we should think this through a bit more." This is what I call the fear alibi, fear masquerading as logic, timing, or responsibility. The fear alibi is brilliant because it sounds so damn reasonable. When you say, "I need more clarity before I launch," people nod approvingly. When you explain you're waiting for the right time, everyone understands. But underneath this rational exterior, fear is running the show, keeping you small while making you feel smart. Your language tells on you. Listen to yourself over the next week. Count how many times you say, "I just need to," or "It's not the right time because," or "I'll start after." Each phrase is fear wearing a disguise, and the result is always the same: perpetual delay, shrinking goals, and lost leverage. Sarah Blakely didn't wait for clarity when she pitched Spanx to department stores with zero retail experience. She moved scared, pitched before she felt ready, and turned repeated rejections into data for her next attempt. While others waited for the right time, she built momentum through small, relentless action. The comfort addiction. But the fear alibi has an accomplice: survival mode addiction. Your nervous system is wired to favor sameness over progress, the known over the unknown. This made sense when avoiding the wrong cave meant avoiding a saber-toothed tiger. Today, it means avoiding the very moves that could transform your life. Survival mode feels productive because you're always busy. You scroll through industry news, tinker with your website, attend another webinar about strategy. These micro-comforts replace the macro moves that actually matter. You're moving, but you're not advancing. Your output plateaus while your identity calcifies as practical and careful. The cruel irony: the longer you stay in survival mode, the more dangerous it becomes to leave. Your risk tolerance shrinks, your world narrows. What once felt like a temporary pause becomes a permanent prison. The resistance reflex. Then there's the resistance reflex, your automatic pushback against any change that threatens your current identity. When opportunity knocks, resistance answers. It overweights imagined downside while ignoring the reversible nature of most moves. It converts ambition into analysis, then analysis into avoidance. This reflex is why you can read every business book, attend every conference, and still find yourself stuck in the same place 6 months later. You're not lacking information. You're experiencing identity protection in real time. Jeff Bezos understood this when he developed his regret minimization framework. He projected himself to age 80 and asked what he'd regret not trying. This future-focused lens cut through present-moment resistance and enabled him to leave a secure Wall Street job to start Amazon. He moved before he felt ready, treating most decisions as two-way doors that could be reversed if needed. The price of the loop. Here's what happens if you don't break this pattern. You pay the stagnation tax. Your income flatlines while bolder peers capture opportunities. Regret grows and hardens into stories that justify inaction. Your risk tolerance collapses, and life narrows to what feels safe. Worse, people around you start to sense your hesitation. Credibility drift sets in. Your team, clients, and family begin to see you as reliable for safety but not for outcomes. High-leverage invitations stop arriving. You become the person others consult for advice but never consider for partnership. Finally comes identity lock-in. Cautious becomes fearful. You mistake comfort for character. 5 years vanish to later, and you wake up wondering where your ambition went. Michael Jordan faced this choice after being cut from his high school basketball team. He could have accepted the story that he wasn't good enough, or he could treat the setback as information. He chose the latter, using rejection as fuel for relentless practice. He normalized discomfort and reframed pressure as privilege, building an identity that thrived under stakes. The builder's path. But there's another way. When you break the loop, you unlock compounding liberation. Self-trust grows as you keep small promises to yourself. Bigger bets feel safer because your floors rise while your ceilings expand. A builder identity attracts partners, capital, and opportunity. You develop strategic calm, the ability to move fast without hurrying. Stress becomes fuel instead of friction. Clarity compounds, leading to cleaner yeses and faster nos. Decision fatigue drops because you're operating from rules, not moods. The ultimate prize is the freedom flywheel. See, own, act, learn cycles that accelerate over time. Less effort produces more inevitability. Results stack month over month. Confidence becomes quiet and contagious. Your first steps out. Breaking the loop starts with seeing it clearly. You'll learn to name the alibi and label the feeling. You'll distinguish between reversible and irreversible decisions. You'll identify the one decision you've been avoiding and understand why. Then you'll choose differently. You'll declare radical ownership and kill the excuse economy. No blame, only design. You'll pick one input lever you actually control and focus there. Next comes the rebuild. You'll shed survivor traits and architect new beliefs. You'll align your behaviors to these beliefs, one swap per week, until action feels like self-expression rather than self-betrayal. The action phase introduces minimum viable courage, starting in 5 minutes or less. You'll stack micro-acts of bravery until momentum builds. You'll review wins nightly, watching confidence rise after action, not before it. Finally, you'll learn to extract data from discomfort and research from failure. You'll refine your rules weekly, always improving the system that produces results. Winners move scared. The difference between winners and losers isn't courage, it's what they do with fear. Winners move scared, act before they feel ready, and convert pain into data. They keep promises to themselves, especially the small ones. Losers wait for certainty and outsource their agency to circumstances. They confuse feelings with facts and defend stories instead of results. They mistake preparation for progress and comfort for character. Oprah Winfrey left the safety of local television to build her own network. She acted before she felt ready, reframed setbacks as signals, and took radical ownership of her brand and message. Her identity led her strategy, not the other way around. The loop you're in isn't permanent. It's a choice you make every day, every hour, every moment you face a decision. You can keep trading potential for predictability, or you can step into the uncertainty that breeds opportunity. The life you want won't arrive on its own schedule. It won't wait for perfect conditions or complete clarity. It's waiting for you to stop surviving and start building. But first, you need to understand exactly how fear has been lying to you, and in the next chapter, we'll expose its most convincing disguise. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Fear Alibi. I just need to get my ducks in a row first. You said it last week, maybe yesterday. The words rolled off your tongue so smoothly, so reasonably, that even you believed them. But here's what really happened. Fear just played its most sophisticated card, and you fell for it completely. This isn't the obvious fear that makes your palms sweat or your heart race. This is fear's PhD, polished, articulate, and devastatingly convincing. It speaks fluent logic and wears the costume of responsibility. It's the master of disguise that's been running your life while you thought you were being smart. The slickest liar you know. Fear doesn't always show up screaming. Sometimes it whispers sweet reasonableness into your ear. It says things like, let's be strategic about this, and we should probably wait until we have more data. It sounds so mature, so professional, that you actually feel good about listening to it. This is the fear alibi in action, fear masquerading as wisdom, timing, or prudent planning. Your brain has learned to confuse how something feels with what is actually true. When a decision feels uncertain, your mind automatically translates that feeling into evidence that you shouldn't act. The emotional weight of uncertainty gets mistaken for logical proof that the timing is wrong. Sarah Blakely discovered this when she was trying to launch Spanx. Every expert told her she needed more market research, more funding, more experience in retail. The logical advice was to wait, plan more, get ready. But Blakely recognized these reasonable-sounding suggestions for what they really were: fear dressed up as business wisdom. She pitched her product to department stores anyway, with no retail experience and a prototype she'd made herself. Each rejection became data, not a verdict. While others waited for perfect conditions, she built a billion-dollar company through imperfect action. The fear alibi is brilliant because it hijacks your intelligence against you. The smarter you are, the more elaborate the rationalizations become. You can construct beautiful, logical arguments for why now isn't the right time, why you need more preparation, why the conditions aren't quite right yet. But underneath all that sophisticated reasoning, fear is pulling the strings. The language that betrays you. Your words tell the real story. Listen to yourself over the next few days. Count how many times you hear yourself say, "I just need to," or "once I have," or "after I figure out." Each phrase is a red flag, a signal that fear is speaking through you. The most dangerous part? These phrases feel so reasonable that other people agree with them. When you say, "I want to make sure I have a solid plan before I launch," people nod approvingly. When you explain you're waiting for the market to stabilize, everyone understands. This social validation makes the fear alibi even more powerful. It's not just you believing the lie, it's everyone around you reinforcing it. But here's what's really happening. You're undersampling options. When fear is driving, you literally can't see possibilities that are right in front of you. This is possibility blindness. Your brain filters out opportunities because they feel risky, leaving you with only the safe, familiar choices that keep you exactly where you are. The resistance reflex kicks in next. Any change that threatens your current identity triggers automatic pushback. Your mind starts generating reasons why the new direction won't work, why the timing is off, why you should stick with what you know. It's not conscious sabotage. It's your brain trying to protect the version of yourself that feels safe and predictable. The myths that keep you stuck. The biggest lie you've been told is that confidence comes first, then action. This backwards thinking has trapped more ambitious people than any external obstacle ever could. You're waiting to feel ready, but readiness is a result of action, not a prerequisite for it. Another myth: you need a perfect plan before you start. This sounds responsible, but it's actually a sophisticated form of procrastination. Most successful moves happen through iteration, not through perfect initial planning. The plan emerges as you move, not before you move. Then there's the myth that no fear means it's the right decision. This is completely backwards. Fear often signals that something matters, that there's real upside at stake. When you feel no fear about a decision, it might mean the stakes are too low to matter. The precision strike. The antidote to the fear alibi isn't positive thinking or motivation, it's precision. You need to name what's happening out loud. When you catch yourself saying, "I need more clarity," stop and say, "This is fear pretending to be timing." The simple act of labeling fear accurately cuts its intensity in half. Rate the fear on a scale of 1 to 10. Watch what happens when you assign a number to it. The feeling becomes smaller, more manageable. It transforms from this overwhelming force into just another piece of data you can work with. Next, identify one reversible next step. Most decisions aren't permanent. Most moves can be undone if they don't work out. When you recognize that a decision is reversible, the stakes drop dramatically and action becomes easier. Now quantify the actual risk. Write one sentence describing the worst-case scenario if this goes wrong. Then write one sentence describing the upside if it goes right. Add one quick mitigation you control. This simple exercise usually reveals that the real risk is much smaller than the imagined risk, while the potential upside is much larger than you initially thought. The counterattack system. Once you can see the fear alibi clearly, you need rules that force movement. Install this simple rule. If a decision is reversible, act within 24 hours. No exceptions. No negotiations. Reversible means you can undo it, change course, or try something different if it doesn't work. Create a trigger for this rule. Put a calendar block on your schedule and set a 3-minute timer. When the timer goes off, you send the email, make the call, or schedule the meeting. You ship, send, or schedule something. Then you log the rep, not the outcome, just the fact that you acted. Pre-write email templates for the bold asks you keep avoiding. Remove the friction of drafting by having the words ready to go. Tie your action to a cue: when your favorite song starts playing, when you open your laptop, when you finish your first cup of coffee. The first note becomes your start signal. Keep a fear phrase jar. Every time you catch yourself using one of those reasonable-sounding delay phrases, put $1 in the jar. The small financial sting helps you notice the pattern and break it faster. Stand while making decisions. Your posture primes your mindset. When you're standing, you're more likely to choose action over analysis. The weekly reckoning. Every week, count how many alibis you caught and how many times you acted anyway. Note which phrases still trip you up and rewrite your counter rules to address them. Share one public commitment for the following week, something that creates just enough social pressure to push you past your comfort zone. The goal isn't to eliminate fear, it's to stop letting fear make your decisions for you. When you start catching the fear alibi in real time, something remarkable happens. Your hesitation windows get shorter. You send the bold messages you've been avoiding. Decision fatigue drops because you're operating from rules instead of redeciding the same things over and over. At the excellent level, you auto-trigger action on all reversible items. You're sending 5 to 10 bold messages per month and seeing your first new clients and partnerships emerge. Your energy returns because you're no longer carrying the weight of unmade decisions. At the best level, fear becomes a targeting signal for meaningful moves. When you feel that familiar resistance, you know you're onto something important. Your pipeline of opportunities doubles or triples within 90 days. Your identity shifts from "I need to be careful" to "I move fast on what matters." When the system breaks down, watch out for overcorrecting into recklessness. Before acting, do a quick 2-way versus 1-way door check. If it's truly irreversible, slow down and gather more information. If it's reversible, maintain your 24-hour rule. New alibis will appear as you get better at catching the old ones. Fear is adaptive. It will find new phrases like tomorrow or after this project finishes. Counter this by pre-scheduling send times and removing choice windows entirely. Analysis spirals are another trap. Cap your research at 30 minutes for reversible decisions. Use the 80-20 rule. You need enough information to make a reasonable decision, not perfect information to make a perfect decision. The fear alibi has been your invisible enemy, the sophisticated saboteur that sounds like your wisest advisor. But now you can see it clearly, name it precisely, and counter it systematically. You're no longer at the mercy of feelings masquerading as facts. But recognizing the fear alibi is just the beginning. There's a deeper trap that's been keeping you small, one that feels so comfortable and reasonable that you might not even realize you're caught in it. Chapter 3, Survival Trap. You've become an expert at staying safe. Your systems are bulletproof. Your processes are refined. Your backup plans have backup plans. You've optimized for predictability, minimized exposure, and built a fortress of reasonable choices that everyone admires. There's just one problem. You've accidentally built a prison. The bars aren't made of steel. They're made of responsible decisions and practical choices. The lock isn't physical. It's the accumulated weight of playing it safe for so long that bold moves now feel impossible. You've become so good at surviving that you've forgotten how to thrive. This isn't about recklessness or throwing caution to the wind. This is about recognizing that your survival instincts, perfectly calibrated for avoiding immediate danger, are now the biggest threat to your long-term success. The comfortable cage. The survival trap is seductive because it feels so responsible. You're not being lazy or careless. You're being smart, practical, strategic. You're waiting for the right conditions, building a solid foundation, making sure all your ducks are in a row. Every choice feels justified. Every delay feels reasonable. But here's what's really happening. You've confused motion with progress. You're busy optimizing systems that keep you exactly where you are. You attend webinars about growth while avoiding the conversations that could actually grow your business. You research market opportunities while never testing any of them. You plan for the future while refusing to take the small risks that could create it. Your brain is wired to prefer known pain over unknown opportunity. This made perfect sense when unknown meant potential death. Today, it means your nervous system treats a difficult conversation with a potential client the same way it would treat a charging predator. The threat isn't real, but the response is. This is why safe choices often become the riskiest bet long-term. While you're protecting yourself from imaginary downside, real opportunities are passing you by. While you're building the perfect plan, bolder competitors are building market share. While you're waiting for certainty, the world is changing around you. J.K. Rowling understood this when she was a single mother living on welfare, writing Harry Potter in cafes because she couldn't afford to heat her apartment. The safe choice would have been to focus entirely on finding stable employment, to put writing aside until her life was more secure. Instead, she chose creation over comfort, writing through rejection after rejection. 12 publishers turned down Harry Potter before Bloomsbury finally said yes. Her time-boxed persistence, writing every day despite uncertainty, produced asymmetric upside that transformed not just her life, but an entire industry. The default path deception. The most dangerous part of the survival trap is how it masquerades as the default path, the route that everyone expects you to take, the one that feels normal and acceptable. But default paths aren't designed for your success. They're designed for institutional convenience. The default path tells you to get more credentials before you start that business, to save more money before you make that career change, to wait until the kids are older before you pursue that dream, to build more experience before you ask for that opportunity. Each piece of advice sounds reasonable in isolation, but together they form a cage that keeps you small. Default paths serve the status quo, not your potential. They're designed to produce predictable, manageable outcomes, not breakthrough results. They assume that the future will look like the past, that gradual progress is always better than bold moves, that safety today is worth sacrificing opportunity tomorrow. But the world doesn't reward default thinking. Markets don't care about your credentials. They care about the value you create. Opportunities don't wait for perfect timing. They go to whoever moves first. Success doesn't come from following the script. It comes from writing your own. The safety myth exposed. The biggest lie you've been told is that stability comes first, then growth. This backwards thinking has trapped more talented people than any external obstacle ever could. You're waiting for life to calm down, for conditions to improve, for the stars to align. But life doesn't calm down, it just changes which chaos you're dealing with. The myth says that once you have enough security, enough savings, enough certainty, then you'll be ready to take risks. But security is a moving target. There's always one more milestone to hit, one more safety net to build, one more contingency to plan for. The goalposts keep moving because the real issue isn't lack of security, it's addiction to the feeling of being secure. Another myth, the default path is safest. This assumes that playing by the rules guarantees good outcomes, that following the prescribed route protects you from failure. But the default path is only safe if the world stays the same. When industries shift, when technologies disrupt, when economic conditions change, the people who followed the default path often get hit the hardest because they never develop the skills to navigate uncertainty. The truth is that optionality is the new security. In a rapidly changing world, your ability to adapt, experiment, and pivot becomes more valuable than any single stable position. The people who thrive are those who build portfolios of small bets, who create multiple income streams, who develop transferable skills across different domains. The exit strategy. Breaking free from the survival trap starts with an honest inventory of your safety rules. What are the 3 rules you obey to be practical? Maybe it's, don't quit your job until you have another one lined up. Or don't launch until you have 6 months of expenses saved. Or don't reach out to important people until you have more experience. For each rule, calculate the 5-year cost of compliance. What opportunities are you missing by following this rule? What growth are you sacrificing? What version of yourself are you preventing from emerging? Often, the long-term cost of playing it safe far exceeds the short-term risk of making a move. Mark the rule with the highest compounding cost, the one that's keeping you smallest for the longest time. This becomes your first target for a reversible exit test. Design a 14-day experiment with a clear start line and minimal financial investment. The goal isn't to solve everything or make a massive change. It's to generate one proof of possibility. Maybe it's getting one reply to a cold outreach, making one small sale, or securing one introductory meeting. The success metric should be simple, measurable, and achievable. Pre-commit to a review date and your next action. This prevents the experiment from drifting indefinitely and forces you to extract learning whether it succeeds or fails. Flipping the script. The key to escaping the survival trap is making growth the default instead of safety. Put your experiment on the calendar before your obligations. Remove friction by creating templates, checklists, and pre-written messages. Add a small public commitment to create just enough social pressure to follow through. Use two-way door language to greenlight speed. When you frame a decision as reversible, the stakes drop dramatically and action becomes easier. Start embarrassingly small to beat inertia. The goal is momentum, not perfection. Tie your tests to set times rather than relying on motivation. Ritual beats willpower every time. Post a visual cue that says default off, where you hesitate most. Your desk, your bathroom mirror, your car dashboard. This reminds you that the default path is no longer your path. Review and iterate ruthlessly. Keep what worked, kill what didn't, and refine one variable for the next test. Launch the next experiment within 48 hours of completing the review. Stack 3 tests and evaluate your portfolio of bets like an investor, not like someone trying to avoid all risk. The compound effect. At the good level, you launch one exit test and reclaim 2 hours per week from default activities. You get your first external proof, a reply, a small sale, an introduction. You notice your fear threshold dropping for the next test. At the excellent level, you complete 3 tests and establish one new income or pipeline stream. You have a system of reversible bets in motion. Decisions feel lighter because you're no longer carrying the weight of unmade choices. Your energy increases because you're moving towards something instead of just protecting what you have. At the best level, you develop a habitual two-way door bias and run monthly experiments as naturally as you used to avoid them. Your optionality widens as asymmetric wins start emerging. Your identity shifts from "I wait for rescue" to "I design exits." When the system fights back, expect pushback from family and peers who are invested in your current path. Show them the reversible design and time-boxed nature of your tests. Negotiate a trial period where they agree not to interfere with your experiments. Watch for test drift, experiments that continue indefinitely without clear endpoints. Set hard 14-day deadlines and recruit a friend to enforce the review. Make your first action take 2 minutes or less and do it immediately to prevent self-sabotage. Avoid data fog by defining one clear success metric per test before you start. This prevents you from moving the goalposts or getting lost in ambiguous results. The survival trap feels so reasonable, so responsible, so adult. But it's actually the most childish response to uncertainty, hiding under the covers and hoping the scary world goes away. The adult response is to engage with uncertainty skillfully, to build systems that thrive on change rather than resist it. You've been optimizing for survival when you should have been engineering for growth. You've been building walls when you should have been building bridges. You've been playing defense when the game rewards offense. But recognizing the trap is just the first step. To truly escape, you need to rebuild something fundamental, something so deep that most people never even realize it needs changing. Chapter 4: Identity Rebuild. I'm just not the type of person who... Stop right there. That sentence you just thought, or said out loud last week, is the most expensive lie you tell yourself. It's not a fact about your nature. It's not an immutable truth about your character. It's a story you've been telling so long that you've forgotten you're the author. The person you think you are was built for a different game. That identity served you well when survival was the goal, when staying small felt safe, when blending in was the smart strategy. But now, it's the biggest obstacle between you and the life you actually want. You can't build a new life with an old self. The tactics will fail, the strategies will feel foreign, and you'll sabotage your own progress because success doesn't match who you think you are. This isn't about motivation or willpower, it's about architecture. You need to rebuild the foundation. The invisible saboteur. Your identity is running the show behind the scenes, making decisions before your conscious mind even gets involved. It's the filter that determines what opportunities you notice, what risks feel acceptable, what actions feel like you. When something doesn't align with your self-concept, your brain automatically rejects it. Not because it's wrong, but because it's inconsistent with who you believe you are. This is why smart, capable people stay stuck in situations that clearly don't serve them. Their tactics are sound, their strategies are logical, but their identity vetoes the execution. They know what to do, but they can't sustain doing it because it feels like betraying themselves. Lady Gaga understood this when she was still Stefani Germanotta, playing piano in dive bars on the Lower East Side. She didn't wait for success to change her identity. She constructed a persona that matched her ambition. The outrageous costumes, the bold performances, the fearless self-expression weren't just marketing tactics. They were identity architecture, designed to make bold action feel congruent instead of foreign. Each time she stepped on stage as Lady Gaga instead of Stefani, she was reinforcing a new story about who she was and what people like her do. The repetition of bold acts normalized risk and reinvention. Eventually, the industry and her audience began mirroring back this new identity, creating a feedback loop that made the transformation stick. The genius wasn't in the spectacle. It was in understanding that identity serves creation, not the other way around. She didn't wait to become successful to act boldly. She acted boldly to become successful. The story you've been telling. Right now, you have an identity headline running in the background of your mind. Maybe it's, I am the careful executor who avoids visible risk, or I am the responsible one who thinks things through, or I am the practical person who doesn't chase unrealistic dreams. This headline feels true because you've been collecting evidence to support it for years. Every time you chose the safe option, every time you avoided the bold move, every time you played it small, you reinforced this story. Your brain filed these choices as proof of who you are, creating a self-reinforcing loop that makes change feel impossible. But here's what you need to understand. You infer who you are from what you repeatedly do. Your identity isn't fixed. It's constantly being updated based on your actions. Change the actions, and you change the story. The person you think you are is just the person you've been practicing being. The old identity defends certain behaviors. It justifies over-preparing, endless research, waiting for perfect conditions. It makes these choices feel responsible and smart, but it also creates costs, missed opportunities, delayed launches, relationships that never form because you didn't make the first move. The builder's blueprint. The new identity you need is that of a builder, someone who creates rather than just consumes, who moves fast on reversible decisions, who treats uncertainty as raw material rather than a threat. This isn't about becoming reckless or abandoning all caution. It's about shifting from a defensive posture to an offensive one. Write your new identity headline. I am the builder who moves fast on two-way doors. This simple statement demands different behaviors. It requires you to distinguish between reversible and irreversible decisions. It pushes you toward action when the stakes are manageable. It makes speed a virtue instead of a vice. This new identity comes with its own set of phrases that you'll start saying daily. Instead of, I need to think about it, you'll say, let me test that quickly. Instead of, I'm not ready yet, you'll say, I'll learn as I go. Instead of, what if it doesn't work, you'll ask, what if it does? The language shift isn't just cosmetic. It's rewiring your brain to see possibilities instead of problems, to focus on upside instead of downside, to default toward action instead of analysis. The swap strategy. Identity change happens through behavior swaps, not dramatic transformations. Each week, you'll replace one behavior that the old identity defended with one that the new identity demands. If the old you spent an hour researching before sending an important email, the new you sends it within 15 minutes. If the old you waited for invitations, the new you creates them. Timebox each swap and log your reps daily. The goal isn't perfection, it's consistency. Celebrate the start of each new behavior, then celebrate the streak as it builds. Your brain needs evidence that this new way of being is not only possible, but sustainable. Create a character sheet that lives in your workspace, a simple document that lists your builder traits, rules, and phrases. Read through it each morning and speak one bold line out loud. This isn't positive thinking, it's identity rehearsal. You're practicing being the person you're becoming. Each evening, do a quick check. Did you act in character today? Not perfectly, but directionally. Did you make choices that a builder would make? Did you move toward your goals or away from them? This isn't about judgment, it's about calibration. The language of liberation. Small language changes create massive identity shifts. Replace I have to with I choose to. This simple swap transforms obligations into decisions, victims into agents. Replace I can't with I don't or I won't. This shifts the locus of control from external circumstances to internal choice. Use microcosts for breaks in character. A small donation to a cause you dislike every time you catch yourself defaulting to old patterns. The financial sting isn't the point, the awareness is. You're training your brain to notice when you're operating from the old identity instead of the new one. Anchor builder cues to your daily context. Change your email signature to include a builder phrase. Start meetings with a statement about what you're building. End calls by mentioning what you'll ship next. These small signals reinforce the new identity throughout your day. Recruit one ally to mirror the new identity back to you. Ask them to notice and comment when you make builder choices. External validation accelerates internal change because it provides social proof that the transformation is real and visible. The compound effect. At the good level, you'll swap 3 behaviors in 30 days and notice cleaner self-talk. You'll receive your first external validation, comments about your decisiveness, your energy, your willingness to take initiative. You'll feel less drag when starting difficult tasks because they align with who you're becoming. At the excellent level, new invitations and partnerships will emerge that are directly tied to your builder signal. People will start seeing you as someone who gets things done, who moves fast, who can be counted on to execute. Your yes-no decisions will get faster, your boundaries will get stronger, and you'll notice a significant uptick in work you actually ship. At the best level, your decisions will snap to your rule set with minimal friction. Bolder asks will feel normal because they're consistent with your identity. Your pipeline will compound because you're consistently taking the actions that builders take. You'll embody the phrase, I build, I go first. When the rebuild stalls, watch for identity whiplash, trying to change too much too fast. Limit yourself to 1 or 2 swaps per week and protect your sleep and recovery. Sustainable change beats dramatic change every time. Expect social mismatch as your old circle resists the new you. Some people are invested in your old identity because it makes them feel better about their own choices. Enlist one ally who supports your growth and reduce exposure to cynics for 30 days while the new patterns solidify. Plan for relapses after bad days. Create an if-then rule. If I slip back into old patterns, I do one builder act within 60 minutes. This prevents temporary setbacks from becoming permanent reversals. Address cognitive dissonance when your beliefs lag behind your behaviors. Log undeniable wins and reread your character sheet nightly. Your brain needs evidence that the new identity is working before it will fully embrace it. The person you've been is not the person you have to remain. Identity isn't destiny, it's choice. Every action is a vote for the type of person you want to become. You've been voting for the careful, cautious, wait-and-see version of yourself. Now it's time to vote for the builder. But even the strongest identity needs the right framework to operate within. There's a specific type of structure that transforms good intentions into inevitable outcomes, and most people never learn how to build it. Chapter 5, Own It. It's not my fault the market shifted. If only my team was more reliable. The timing just wasn't right. Listen to yourself for the next hour. Count how many times you explain away a result by pointing to something outside your control. Each excuse feels reasonable, even true. But here's what's really happening. You're trading power for comfort, agency for alibis, growth for the temporary relief of not being responsible. There's a word for this transaction. It's called the excuse economy, and you've been living in it so long that you've forgotten there's another way to operate, a way where you become the cause of your outcomes instead of their victim, a way where problems become puzzles you can solve instead of forces you must endure. This isn't about self-blame or taking responsibility for things genuinely outside your control. This is about claiming the power that's rightfully yours, the power to influence, to adjust, to improve, to cause. It's about understanding that ownership isn't a burden. It's the master key that unlocks everything else. The hidden cost of blame. Every time you point to an external cause for your results, you're making a trade. You're preserving your ego in exchange for your learning loop. You're protecting your self-image at the cost of your growth rate. You're choosing to feel right over being effective. Blame feels good in the moment because it removes the pressure to change. If the market is the problem, you don't have to adjust your strategy. If your team is the issue, you don't have to improve your leadership. If timing is the culprit, you don't have to question your decision-making process. The excuse provides immediate relief from the discomfort of responsibility. But this relief comes with a devastating hidden cost: helplessness. When you consistently attribute your results to external factors, you train your brain to see yourself as powerless. You become a passenger in your own life, waiting for conditions to improve instead of improving your response to conditions. Jocko Willink learned this lesson in the most extreme circumstances possible, leading Navy SEAL teams in combat in Iraq. When a mission went wrong, the instinctive response was to blame external factors: bad intelligence, equipment failures, enemy tactics. But Willink discovered that blame, even when technically accurate, killed the learning loop that kept his team alive. Instead, he instituted extreme ownership. Every leader took responsibility for everything in their sphere of influence, regardless of the immediate cause. If a subordinate made a mistake, the leader owned the failure to train or communicate properly. If equipment failed, the leader owned the failure to have adequate backup systems. This wasn't about fairness or accuracy, it was about effectiveness. The result was teams that self-corrected faster, learned more from failures, and developed an almost supernatural ability to adapt under pressure. When you own the outcome, you own the power to change it. The accountability architecture. Ownership without structure is just good intentions. You need systems that make accountability automatic, that reward cause and effect thinking, that turn responsibility from a burden into a competitive advantage. Start with the weekly ownership ledger. 3 simple lines that force clarity about your role in every outcome. I caused identifies your contribution to the result, positive or negative. I learned extracts the lesson without judgment. I'll change commits to one specific adjustment for the following week. This isn't about self-flagellation or perfectionism. It's about maintaining agency. When you consistently ask, "What did I cause?" instead of "What happened to me?" you train your brain to see levers you can pull, variables you can adjust, inputs you can control. The ledger forces you to identify one input lever to adjust each week. Maybe it's increasing your outbound activity, improving your follow-up process, or changing how you prepare for important conversations. The key is focusing on what you can directly influence, not what you hope will change. Share your ledger with one peer for visibility. This isn't about shame or judgment. It's about creating external accountability that keeps you honest. When someone else sees your commitments, you're more likely to follow through. The 2 scoreboard system. Most people track outputs, revenue, sign-ups, response rates, and wonder why they feel powerless when the numbers don't move. But outputs are influenced by inputs, and inputs are what you actually control. Create 2 scoreboards, one for inputs, one for outputs. Your input scoreboard tracks the activities you directly control: outbound messages sent, proposals submitted, practice sessions completed, networking conversations initiated. Your output scoreboard tracks the results: revenue generated, meetings booked, partnerships formed, deals closed. Review both scoreboards weekly, looking for correlations. Which inputs drive which outputs? What's the lag time between activity and result? Where can you increase volume or improve quality? This cause and effect analysis gives you specific levers to pull when you want different results. The input scoreboard is where your power lives. You can't control whether someone says yes to your proposal, but you can control how many proposals you send. You can't control market conditions, but you can control how quickly you adapt to them. You can't control other people's decisions, but you can control the quality of information they have to make those decisions. Upstream problem solving. Most people solve problems downstream, after they've already caused damage, wasted time, or missed opportunities. Ownership means solving problems upstream at their source before they can compound. When something goes wrong, trace it back 2 steps. If a client is unhappy with a deliverable, don't just fix the deliverable. Examine the process that created it. Was the brief unclear? Was the timeline unrealistic? Was there insufficient check-in communication? Install a preventive step that addresses the root cause, not just the symptom. Create an upstream-downstream map for your recurring problems. Most issues that feel random or external actually have patterns you can interrupt. The client who's always changing requirements probably needs a different onboarding process. The team member who misses deadlines probably needs clearer expectations and more frequent check-ins. The opportunity that slips away probably needed earlier and more consistent follow-up. Lock in preventive habits before starting new projects. If poor communication has caused problems in the past, institute daily stand-ups or weekly check-ins from the beginning. If scope creep has been an issue, create detailed project briefs and change order processes up front. If missed deadlines have created stress, build buffer time into your estimates. Retest your fixes within 7 days. Don't wait for the next major project to see if your upstream solution works. Create a small test case that lets you validate the improvement quickly and adjust if needed. The personal service agreement. Define your own standards before others define them for you. Create a personal SLA, service level agreement, that specifies your response times, quality bars, and delivery commitments. This isn't about perfectionism, it's about predictability. Publish your SLA to stakeholders so they know what to expect and when to expect it. Include an escalation path for when you miss your own standards. How you'll communicate delays, what you'll do to get back on track, how you'll prevent similar issues in the future. This proactive transparency builds trust faster than perfect execution because it demonstrates ownership of the entire process, not just the final outcome. People can work with clear expectations and honest communication. They can't work with surprises and excuses. The rhythm of responsibility. Monday commit, Friday report. This simple rhythm beats willpower every time. Start each week by committing to specific inputs you'll control. End each week by reporting on what you actually did and what you learned. The consistency of the rhythm matters more than the perfection of the execution. Limit your focus to 3 goals maximum. Diluted attention kills ownership because you can't maintain clear cause and effect relationships across too many variables. Better to own 3 outcomes completely than to have partial influence over 10. Use 1-sentence postmortems to avoid analysis spirals. When something doesn't go as planned, capture the lesson in a single sentence and move on. Extended postmortems often become excuse-generating sessions disguised as learning opportunities. Put your scoreboard where you act, in your inbox, on your CRM dashboard, in your workspace. Visibility drives behavior. When you can see your inputs and outputs in real time, you make better moment-to-moment decisions. Add a small sting for misses, a donation to a cause you dislike when you fail to hit your own standards. The financial cost isn't the point, the awareness is. You're training your brain to notice when you're operating below your own standards. The compound effect of ownership. At the good level, you complete your ownership ledger for 4 weeks straight and identify a clear link between one input and one result. You notice fewer excuses in your language and faster resets when things go wrong. At the excellent level, you optimize your inputs and see cycle times drop by 25 to 40%. Stakeholders start citing your reliability in referrals and recommendations. You implement 2 upstream fixes that eliminate recurring problems entirely. At the best level, you develop a reputation for delivery that attracts premium opportunities. You lead conversations with calm cause and effect thinking instead of reactive problem solving. Trust compounds into leverage as people know they can count on you to own outcomes, not just activities. When ownership goes wrong, watch for over-ownership that leads to burnout. Own your inputs completely, but share responsibility for outputs with your systems and teams. Cap yourself to adjusting 1 lever per week. More changes make it impossible to track cause and effect. Avoid shame loops by replacing my fault with my design. Shift to neutral, factual language in your ledger. Celebrate corrected mistakes as evidence of your learning system working, not failures of character. Prevent measurement myopia by balancing quantitative tracking with qualitative observations. Do monthly zoom-outs to ensure your tactics still serve your strategy. Kill vanity metrics that make you feel good but don't drive real results. Ownership isn't about blame or guilt or carrying the weight of the world. It's about claiming your power to influence outcomes, to learn from results, to improve your approach. It's about becoming someone who causes progress instead of waiting for it to happen. When you own your outcomes, you own your future. When you own your future, you can design it instead of just hoping for it. But design requires more than good intentions. It requires a specific type of governance that most people never learn to install. Chapter 6, Future Rules. You make the same decision over and over again. Every morning, you decide whether to check email first or tackle your most important work. Every time your phone buzzes, you decide whether to respond immediately or stay focused. Every opportunity that lands in your inbox, you decide whether to say yes or protect your priorities. The same choices, day after day, each one feeling fresh and requiring new mental energy. But what if you only had to make each decision once? What if you could decide today how you'll handle every similar situation in the future, removing the choice entirely and converting your best intentions into automatic behavior? This isn't about rigid rules that constrain you. It's about installing a governance system that frees you from the exhausting cycle of redeciding the same things repeatedly. This is future self-governance, and it's the difference between people who consistently act on their ambitions and those who consistently betray them. The tyranny of the present. Your brain is wired with a present bias that makes immediate concerns feel more important than future outcomes. The email that just arrived feels more urgent than the project that could transform your business. The meeting request feels more pressing than the deep work that could unlock your next breakthrough. The comfortable choice feels safer than the bold move that could change everything. This isn't a character flaw. It's a feature of human psychology that served us well when immediate threats were literally life or death. But in today's world, this same bias becomes a trap. You consistently choose what feels good now over what would serve you later, then wonder why your days feel reactive instead of intentional. Jeff Bezos discovered this when he was deciding whether to leave his secure Wall Street job to start an online bookstore. The present moment calculation was clear. Stay safe, keep the steady paycheck, avoid the risk of failure. But Bezos had developed what he called a regret minimization framework. He projected himself to age 80 and asked what he would regret not trying. From that future perspective, the choice became obvious. He wouldn't regret trying and failing, but he would regret not trying at all. This wasn't just a one-time decision tool. It became a meta rule that governed how he approached all major choices. When facing Amazon's expansion into new markets, the same framework applied. What would minimize regret from the perspective of his future self? This future backward thinking became Amazon's approach to two-way door versus one-way door decisions. Reversible choices got made quickly with minimal deliberation. Irreversible choices got the full treatment with deep analysis and broad consultation. The rule removed the need to debate the decision-making process for each individual choice. The architecture of automatic rules beat moods because feelings fluctuate while principles remain constant. When you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, your decision-making deteriorates. You choose the path of least resistance, say yes to things you should decline, and avoid the difficult conversations that could unlock progress. But rules don't get tired. They don't have bad days. They don't negotiate with fear. The key is creating rules that align your daily choices with your long-term aims, not your moment-to-moment feelings. These aren't rigid constraints. They're decision filters that make the right choice automatic and the wrong choice obvious. Start with 5 simple rules written in if X then Y format. If someone sends me a two-way door decision, then I respond within 24 hours. If I have a high-leverage block on my calendar, then I protect it like a client meeting. If it's Friday, then I send one bold ask before the weekend. Each rule should tie to a strategic aim: freedom, revenue, mastery, relationships, health. Name each rule for easy recall: the 24-hour rule for quick decisions, sacred blocks for protected time, bold Friday for weekly courage practice. When rules have names, they become part of your identity instead of external constraints you resist. The trigger system. Rules without triggers are just good intentions. You need environmental cues that activate the right behavior at the right moment, removing the need for willpower or memory. Attach calendar blocks to your rules. If you have a rule about daily deep work, block the time and treat it like an unmovable appointment. If you have a rule about weekly planning, schedule it as a recurring meeting with yourself. If you have a rule about monthly reviews, put it on the calendar with specific agenda items. Create email templates for common decisions. If you frequently get requests that don't align with your priorities, write a polite decline template that you can send immediately. If you often need to propose alternative meeting times, create a template that offers specific options. If you regularly make bold asks, draft templates for different types of requests. Build visual cues at decision points. Put a note on your computer that reminds you of your morning routine rule. Add your priority criteria to your phone's wallpaper. Include your core rules in your email signature so you see them every time you send a message. The goal is to remove choice windows, those moments when you have to decide whether to follow your rule or not. The more automatic the trigger, the less mental energy required to execute the behavior. The opportunity filter. Without clear criteria for saying yes, you'll say yes to everything that sounds interesting, reasonable, or flattering. This leads to a calendar full of activities that feel productive but don't advance your actual priorities. Build a simple opportunity filter with 3 criteria: strategic fit, asymmetric upside, and minimal distraction. Strategic fit means the opportunity advances one of your core goals. Asymmetric upside means the potential gain significantly outweighs the potential loss. Minimal distraction means it won't derail your existing priorities. Score each opportunity on a scale of 1 to 5 for each criterion. Accept opportunities that score 12 or higher out of 15. Decline everything else with a template that protects your focus without burning bridges. This isn't about being rigid or missing unexpected opportunities. It's about having clear criteria that help you distinguish between genuine opportunities and attractive distractions. Most opportunities are actually obligations disguised as chances for advancement. Theme your days to create natural boundaries. Monday for creation, Tuesday for sales, Wednesday for management, Thursday for learning, Friday for bold asks. When someone requests a meeting, you can immediately see whether it fits the day's theme or needs to be rescheduled. Use first domino planning. Identify the one move that unlocks 3 others. If you're considering a speaking opportunity, ask whether it could lead to media coverage, partnership discussions, and client referrals. If you're evaluating a potential collaboration, consider whether it could open doors to their network, create content opportunities, and generate case study material. The monthly calibration. Rules aren't permanent. They're experiments that you refine based on results. Every month, review which rules created the most momentum and which caused unnecessary friction. Keep the rules that serve your outcomes, kill the ones that don't, and refine the ones that need adjustment. Ask yourself which rule generated the most progress toward your goals. Maybe your sacred blocks rule protected time that led to a breakthrough project. Maybe your 24-hour rule for reversible decisions accelerated your pipeline development. Double down on what's working. Identify rules that created friction or felt forced. Maybe your no meetings before 10 a.m. rule conflicts with client preferences. Maybe your weekly bold ask rule feels artificial when you don't have genuine requests to make. Adjust or eliminate rules that fight against reality instead of working with it. Add 1 upgrade per month, a new rule, trigger, or filter that addresses a recurring decision point. If you find yourself repeatedly debating whether to attend networking events, create a rule. If you keep getting distracted by social media during work hours, install a trigger. If you're saying yes to too many coffee meetings, build a filter. The goal isn't to have more rules. It's to have better rules that make your desired behaviors automatic and your undesired behaviors obvious. The freedom paradox. The biggest myth about rules is that they limit freedom. In reality, Rules create usable freedom by removing low-value decisions and protecting high-value choices. When you don't have to debate whether to check email first thing in the morning, you have more mental energy for creative work. When you don't have to negotiate with yourself about protecting deep work time, you can focus completely on the task at hand. Chaos costs more than constraint. Without rules, every decision requires fresh mental energy. You waste cognitive resources on routine choices that could be automated, leaving less capacity for the decisions that actually matter. You drift toward whatever feels easiest in the moment instead of what serves your long-term interests. Boundaries breed creativity by providing structure within which innovation can flourish. When you know your constraints, you can optimize within them. When you have clear priorities, you can say no to good opportunities in order to say yes to great ones. Another myth: you can just trust your gut for every decision. But guts wobble under pressure, fatigue, and fear. Your intuition in the morning might be completely different from your intuition in the evening. Pre-commitment beats redeciding because it captures your best thinking when you're clear-headed and applies it when you're not. Use your gut within your rules, not instead of them. If an opportunity meets your filter criteria, but something feels off, investigate further. If a rule consistently feels wrong, examine whether it needs adjustment. But don't abandon your governance system every time you feel resistance. Resistance often signals that the rule is working by preventing you from taking the easy path. The compound effect. At the good level, you'll follow 3 rules consistently each week and notice decision fatigue dropping significantly. You'll make faster starts on important work and have fewer calendar regrets at the end of each day. At the excellent level, you'll have 5 active rules, including a weekly bold ask practice. Your priority ladder will automatically block low-value work from entering your schedule. You'll see velocity rising while rework and second-guessing fall dramatically. At the best level, your calendar will align perfectly with your strategy, and friction will become minimal. The deals and projects you pursue will match your future aims instead of your present convenience. You'll consistently act like the person you're becoming instead of the person you've been. Watch for rule bloat, the temptation to create a rule for every situation. Cap yourself at 7 rules maximum and retire one whenever you add a new one. Simplicity scales better than complexity. Avoid rigid application by including override clauses with specific criteria. Review outliers monthly rather than making ad hoc exceptions that erode the system. Future self-governance isn't about controlling every moment of your life. It's about ensuring that your daily choices compound toward your long-term vision instead of away from it. It's about becoming someone who acts on their ambitions instead of just thinking about them. But even the best rules and strongest governance can't overcome one fundamental challenge that stops most people before they even begin. There's a specific type of activation energy required to turn intention into action, and most people never learn how to generate it reliably. Chapter 7: Courage Engine. You're waiting for courage to arrive. Like a package you ordered online, you keep checking for its delivery. You scan your feelings each morning, hoping today will be the day you feel brave enough to make that call, send that proposal, or have that difficult conversation. But courage isn't coming to your door. It's not a feeling you wait for. It's a machine you build. Most people think courage is a personality trait, something you either have or you don't. They believe brave people feel less fear, that confidence comes first and action follows. But this backwards thinking has trapped more ambitious people than any external obstacle ever could. The truth is simpler and more powerful. Courage is a system. It's a repeatable process that converts tiny risks into momentum, momentum into identity, and identity into outsized outcomes. Once you understand how to build this engine, you can generate activation energy on demand instead of waiting for inspiration to strike. The backwards formula. Everything you've been told about courage is wrong. You've been taught that confidence comes first, then action, that you need to feel ready before you move. That fear is a stop sign instead of a starting signal. This backwards formula keeps you stuck in an endless loop of preparation without execution. The real formula runs in reverse. Action creates confidence, not the other way around. Every time you do something that scares you and survive, your brain updates its assessment of your capabilities. Each small act of courage becomes evidence that you're the kind of person who acts despite uncertainty. This evidence accumulates into a new self-image, which makes the next brave act feel more natural. Sarah Blakely discovered this when she was selling fax machines door to door in her early 20s. She was terrified of rejection, but she needed the job. Instead of waiting to feel confident, she forced herself to make the calls anyway. Each no stung, but it also proved she could handle rejection and keep going. The repetition didn't eliminate her fear, it normalized it. When she later pitched Spanx to department stores, she used the same approach. She didn't wait until she felt like a confident entrepreneur. She acted like one, pitch after pitch, rejection after rejection, until the evidence of her persistence convinced both herself and eventually Neiman Marcus to take a chance on her product. The courage loop was running in public. Action generated proof, proof built belief, belief enabled bigger action. Each cycle strengthened her identity as someone who moves forward despite fear, which made the next move feel less foreign and more inevitable. The minimum viable start. The secret to building a courage engine isn't grand gestures or dramatic leaps. It's engineering tiny starts that require minimal activation energy. Most people fail at courage because they try to go from zero to hero in a single bound. They wait for the perfect moment to make the perfect move, then wonder why they never feel ready. Instead, design what I call start lines. Actions so small they feel almost silly to avoid. 5-minute tasks that move you toward your goal without requiring heroic effort. Draft the first paragraph of that important email. Look up the contact information for that potential client. Record a 30-second video introducing yourself. These aren't the full solution, they're just the first step. The genius of start lines is that they bypass your resistance mechanism. Your brain can't generate much fear about a 5-minute task. There's not enough at stake to trigger your survival instincts. But once you start, momentum takes over. The hardest part of any challenging task is beginning, and start lines make beginning automatic. Anchor each start line to a cue you already have in your routine. When you open your laptop in the morning, draft one important email. When you finish your first cup of coffee, make one business call. When you log into your CRM, send one follow-up message. The existing habit becomes the trigger for the new behavior. Track your starts in a visible log, not the outcomes, just the fact that you began. This shifts your focus from results you can't control to actions you can. It also creates a visual record of your courage practice, which reinforces your identity as someone who consistently takes action. The stacking strategy. Once you have reliable start lines, you can chain them together into what I call courage pushes. 15-minute bursts of concentrated action. 3 5-minute starts back to back create momentum that carries you through tasks that would normally trigger procrastination. The key is treating each push as a complete unit. You're not committing to work on something for hours. You're committing to 3 specific starts in sequence. Send the email, make the call, update the proposal. Done. The time box protects you from overwhelm while the sequence creates flow. Aim for 2 pushes per day on your priority days, with a weekly total of at least 10 starts. This isn't about intensity, it's about consistency. 10 small acts of courage per week compound into 520 per year. That's enough repetition to completely rewire your relationship with uncertainty and risk. Build in a weekly courage sprint, a 20-minute block where you tackle one task that sits at the edge of your comfort zone. Pick something that makes you slightly nervous but isn't catastrophic if it goes wrong. Spend 3 minutes doing a quick premortem. What could go wrong and how would you handle each scenario? Then execute immediately and log the outcome. The premortem isn't about talking yourself out of action. It's about reducing perceived risk by acknowledging and planning for potential obstacles. When you've already considered what might go wrong and how you'd respond, the actual risk feels more manageable. The Bold Ask Protocol. Every Friday, send one ambitious request. This becomes your weekly practice in asking for what you want instead of hoping someone will offer it. The request should stretch you slightly, not so big that it feels impossible, but not so small that it requires no courage. Use templates to remove the friction of crafting the perfect message. Have pre-written frameworks for different types of asks: introductions, partnerships, speaking opportunities, media coverage, client referrals. The template handles the structure. You just customize the specifics. Include a clear call to action in every bold ask. Don't make people guess what you want them to do. Would you be willing to introduce me to? Could we schedule a 20-minute call to discuss? I'd love to explore whether. Specificity makes it easier for people to say yes because they know exactly what they're agreeing to. Schedule your follow-up within 72 hours of sending the initial request. Most people send one message and wait indefinitely for a response. But follow-up is where persistence pays off. The second message often gets the response that the first one didn't, not because the timing was better, but because repetition signals genuine interest. The automation advantage. Use a 2-song timer to create urgency without pressure. When your playlist starts, you start. When the second song ends, you stop. This creates a natural rhythm that makes courage practice feel more like a game than a chore. Follow the shorter path first rule. Always ship the fastest version before perfecting it. Send the rough draft before polishing it. Make the basic version before adding features. Launch the simple solution before building the complex one. Speed beats perfection because action generates feedback, and feedback enables improvement. Keep a public scoreboard for your starts, but a private one for your wins. Share how many bold asks you've sent, how many calls you've made, how many projects you've shipped. But keep the results private until they're substantial. This prevents you from getting addicted to external validation while still creating accountability for your actions. Rotate your start lines every 2 weeks to prevent staleness. If you've been drafting emails as your morning start, switch to making calls. If you've been updating your website, switch to reaching out to potential partners. Novelty keeps the practice fresh and prevents your brain from automating the courage out of the activity. Pair a tiny reward with each start to reinforce the behavior. Not a big celebration, just a small acknowledgement that you did what you said you'd do. Check off the box, add a tally mark, or simply say "done" out loud. The micro reward signals to your brain that this behavior is worth repeating. The identity shift. At the good level, you'll complete 5 to 7 starts per week and notice visible momentum in your projects. Your hesitation windows will shrink as you get used to acting quickly on opportunities. You'll see your first small wins arrive as a direct result of your courage practice. At the excellent level, you'll hit 20 or more starts per month and send 4 bold asks that actually get responses. Your pipeline will grow as people start seeing you as someone who takes initiative. Your identity will shift to, "I'm a starter," someone who begins things instead of just thinking about them. At the best level, courage will feel routine rather than exceptional. Confidence will become reliable because it's based on evidence rather than mood. Larger moves will feel normal because you've built up your tolerance for uncertainty through consistent practice. Your results will compound quarter over quarter as your courage practice creates opportunities that create more opportunities. When the engine stalls, watch for overscoping, trying to make each start too big or too perfect. If you find yourself hesitating, shrink the start to 2 minutes or less. Use templates to remove friction and enforce strict time boxes to prevent perfectionism from creeping in. Avoid white-knuckle pace by limiting yourself to 2 pushes per day maximum. Schedule recovery blocks just like you schedule work blocks. Celebrate starts, not marathons. The goal is sustainable courage practice, not heroic burnout. Prevent stale reps by rotating your start lines every 2 weeks. Add novelty by trying new channels or reaching out to new audiences. But keep one constant element to preserve momentum. If you change everything at once, you lose the compounding effect of repetition. The courage engine isn't about eliminating fear, it's about moving forward despite fear. It's about building a system that generates activation energy on demand instead of waiting for motivation to strike. It's about becoming someone who acts on opportunities instead of just recognizing them. But there's one more element that separates people who build sustainable courage from those who burn out trying. It's a specific way of relating to the discomfort that courage creates, and most people get it completely backwards. Chapter 8: Fear Mastery. Fear is trying to tell you something. Right now, as you think about that conversation you've been avoiding or that project you keep postponing, your nervous system is sending you a message. Most people try to silence this signal, to push through it, or wait for it to disappear. But what if you've been reading the message wrong? What if fear isn't a stop sign, but a compass? What if discomfort isn't a warning to retreat, but information about what matters most? What if the very sensation you've been trying to eliminate is actually the key to unlocking your next level of performance? This isn't about becoming fearless. That's both impossible and undesirable. This is about becoming fear literate, learning to read the signals your nervous system sends and convert them into better decisions, sharper focus, and more effective action. The signal in the static. Your brain treats uncertainty like a threat because, for most of human history, uncertainty often meant danger. The rustle in the bushes could be wind, or it could be a predator. Better to assume threat and be wrong than to assume safety and be dead. This hair-trigger response system kept your ancestors alive, but it's now sabotaging your success. In today's world, the threats your brain detects are usually opportunities in disguise. The nervousness you feel before an important presentation isn't your brain warning you of danger. It's your brain preparing you for something that matters. The anxiety you experience when considering a bold career move isn't a sign you shouldn't do it. It's a sign that the stakes are high enough to care about. Michael Jordan understood this distinction better than almost anyone. When he was cut from his high school basketball team, he could have interpreted the fear and disappointment as evidence that he wasn't good enough. Instead, he used those feelings as fuel. The discomfort became information. This matters to me, so I need to get better. Throughout his career, Jordan reframed pressure as privilege. The nervousness before big games wasn't something to eliminate. It was proof that he was in a position to make a difference. He learned to read his fear as a targeting system that pointed toward what mattered most. The bigger the fear, the bigger the opportunity. This shift in interpretation changed everything. Instead of trying to avoid situations that made him nervous, he sought them out. Instead of waiting to feel confident, he used his discomfort as evidence that he was pushing into meaningful territory. The fear became a compass that guided him toward growth rather than a wall that blocked his progress. The premortem advantage. Most people avoid thinking about what could go wrong because it feels like inviting failure. But this avoidance actually increases risk by leaving you unprepared for predictable obstacles. The solution isn't to ignore potential problems, it's to surface them systematically and design around them. The premortem is a 10-minute exercise that dramatically reduces perceived risk while improving actual outcomes. Before you launch that project, send that proposal, or make that ask, spend 10 minutes listing 5 ways it could fail. Not to talk yourself out of action, but to prepare for the most likely obstacles. For each potential failure, write one specific countermeasure you could implement. If the client might object to the price, prepare 3 different ways to frame the value. If the presentation might run long, identify which sections you could cut without losing impact. If the partnership proposal might get lost in their inbox, plan your follow-up sequence in advance. This isn't pessimism, it's preparation. When you've already considered what might go wrong and how you'd respond, the actual risk feels more manageable. You move from hoping nothing goes wrong to being ready when something does. The premortem transforms vague anxiety into specific, actionable preparation. Set a hard 10-minute limit to prevent analysis paralysis. The goal isn't to identify every possible risk, it's to surface the most likely ones and prepare basic responses. Overthinking is just another form of stalling, a way to feel productive while avoiding action. After the premortem, act within 24 hours. The exercise is designed to reduce hesitation, not increase it. Use the preparation to move faster, not to delay longer. The learning loop. When things don't go as planned, and they won't, your response determines whether the experience becomes wisdom or just wasted time. Most people either ignore failures entirely or spiral into self-blame that prevents them from extracting useful lessons. The post-mortem is a 3-line exercise that protects your identity while maximizing learning. What worked? What failed? What will you change? Keep each answer to one sentence to avoid the analysis spirals that turn learning into rumination. The key is neutral, factual language that treats failures as data rather than verdicts. Instead of, "I'm terrible at presentations," write, "The opening didn't grab attention." Instead of, "I always mess up follow-up," write, "I waited too long to send the second email." This shift from identity-based language to behavior-based language keeps your confidence intact while enabling improvement. Schedule your next attempt while the lessons are fresh. Don't wait until you feel ready again. That feeling might never come. Use the momentum of learning to fuel immediate action. The best time to try again is when you're still processing what went wrong the first time. Create a discomfort log to track patterns in your fear responses. Note when you feel nervous, where you are, how intense the feeling is, and what action you took anyway. Over time, you'll start to see that discomfort often precedes breakthrough, that the things that scare you most are often the things that matter most. Record what you learned from each uncomfortable situation. Did the fear prove justified, or was it just your brain being overprotective? Did taking action despite discomfort lead to positive outcomes? This evidence accumulates into a new relationship with uncertainty, one based on data rather than instinct. The rebound protocol. The most dangerous moment isn't when you fail, it's the 24 hours after you fail. This is when your brain tries to update your identity based on a single data point, when one setback becomes evidence that you're not cut out for bold action. The rebound protocol interrupts this identity damage by forcing immediate action. Within 24 hours of any significant miss or rejection, execute one tiny win. Send one follow-up email, make one new connection, complete one small task that moves you forward. The specific action matters less than the timing. You're proving to yourself that setbacks don't stop you, they redirect you. Use neutral language to describe what happened. Replace "I failed" with "that didn't work." Replace "I was rejected" with "they said no." Replace "I'm not good at this" with "I'm still learning this." These aren't just semantic games, they're identity protection strategies that keep temporary setbacks from becoming permanent self-concepts. Send one bold ask immediately after any significant disappointment. This might seem counterintuitive. Why risk another rejection when you're already stinging from the last one? Because the best time to practice resilience is when you need it most. The bold ask proves that your courage isn't dependent on perfect conditions or recent success. Review your premortem counters and upgrade one based on what you learned. If a specific risk materialized that you hadn't anticipated, add it to your standard premortem checklist. If a countermeasure worked better than expected, make it your default response. Each failure becomes input for better preparation next time. The productive fear framework. Speak your fear out loud to reduce its intensity. When you name what you're feeling specifically, "I'm nervous about looking unprepared," or "I'm worried they'll think my price is too high," the emotion becomes smaller and more manageable. Vague anxiety is harder to work with than specific concerns. Use color coding to quickly assess risk levels. Green for low-risk moves you can make immediately, amber for medium-risk moves that need basic preparation, red for high-risk moves that require careful planning. This visual system helps you match your response to the actual level of risk instead of treating every uncertainty as a crisis. Keep a 2-song timer running during courage practice. When the music starts, you start. When the second song ends, you evaluate. This creates urgency without pressure, momentum without overwhelm. The time constraint prevents perfectionism, while the music provides energy. Tie your courage practice to existing routines. Make your bold ask every Friday before you check out for the weekend. Do your weekly premortem every Monday morning before you check email. Schedule your post-mortem review every Sunday evening as part of your weekly planning. Rhythm beats motivation because it removes the need to decide when to be brave. The mastery mindset. At the good level, you'll establish a weekly premortem and postmortem loop that makes you faster to start and slower to quit. You'll notice less fear noise interfering with your decision-making because you're treating discomfort as information rather than instruction. At the excellent level, you'll bounce back quickly from setbacks and maintain higher risk tolerance because you have clean systems for handling obstacles. Your performance under pressure will improve because you're using nervous energy as fuel rather than fighting it. At the best level, fear becomes your compass for finding meaningful challenges. You'll actively seek situations that make you slightly uncomfortable because you know that's where growth lives. Your long-term resilience will feel effortless because you've trained your nervous system to see uncertainty as opportunity rather than threat. Watch for overanalysis that turns premortems into procrastination tools. Set hard time limits and act before your mood shifts. Decide with a two-way door bias. If you can reverse the decision, make it quickly. Avoid identity bruising by immediately logging one win after any significant miss. Get an ally to mirror your progress back to you when your internal voice becomes too critical. Remember that data beats verdicts, that learning beats judging, that momentum beats perfection. Fear mastery isn't about becoming fearless, it's about becoming fear literate. It's about reading the signals your nervous system sends and using them to make better decisions, take smarter risks, and build sustainable courage. But there's one final integration that separates people who master these concepts from those who just understand them intellectually. It's about taking everything you've learned and turning it into a way of being that feels as natural as breathing. Go build. You're not the same person who started reading this book. That person was trapped in loops, trading potential for predictability, waiting for permission that would never come. That person believed the fear alibi, worshipped the survival trap, and mistook comfort for character. That person is gone. In their place stands someone who sees the game clearly, owns their outcomes completely, and moves with the quiet confidence that comes from having systems instead of just hopes. You now possess something most people never develop, the ability to generate progress on demand. This isn't the end of your transformation. It's the beginning of your mastery. Everything you've learned so far has been preparation for this moment when you stop consuming information and start creating results. The complete system. Let's crystallize what you now know. You've learned to name fear and spot the alibi, those reasonable-sounding phrases that keep you small. When you hear yourself say, "I need more clarity," or "it's not the right time," you now recognize fear wearing a business suit. You label it, shrink it, translate it into reversible action, and move within 24 hours. You've learned to escape defaults and design exits. Instead of accepting the prescribed path, you create time-boxed tests with two-way doors. You choose optionality over false safety, review ruthlessly, and iterate constantly. You've stopped worshiping stability and started engineering opportunity. You've rebuilt your identity from survivor to builder. You swap behaviors weekly, track input scoreboards, and install upstream fixes that prevent problems at their source. You've learned that you become who you repeatedly practice being, and you're now practicing being someone who creates rather than just consumes. You govern by future rules instead of present moods. You have 5 named triggered rules that align your daily choices with your long-term vision. You run daily start lines and weekly bold asks. You use premortems to reduce perceived risk and postmortems to extract learning without shame. Most importantly, you've built a courage engine that converts fear into fuel. You understand that discomfort is data, that fear is a compass pointing toward what matters most, and that confidence comes from action, not the other way around. The power you now possess. This system gives you agency on demand. You're no longer at the mercy of circumstances, moods, or other people's decisions. You've become the cause of your progress instead of its victim. Your decisions speed up because you have rules instead of endless redeliberation. Your stress goes down because you're operating from systems instead of hoping for luck. Your confidence becomes reliable because it's based on evidence rather than feelings. Every time you act despite fear and survive, your brain updates its assessment of your capabilities. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your self-trust grows. Every time you own an outcome and extract learning, your competence increases. You develop what I call opportunity magnetism, the ability to attract partnerships, invitations, and possibilities through consistent action. People start seeing you as decisive, consistent, and brave. They prefer to work with builders rather than bystanders, and you've clearly signaled which category you belong to. The compound effect is profound. Time, energy, and optionality expand as your systems run automatically. Your identity aligns with your actions, creating a self-reinforcing loop. Results stack quietly, month after month, as your courage practice creates opportunities that create more opportunities. The relationship revolution. These changes transform more than just your professional life. Ownership reduces blame in your personal relationships, making conversations cleaner and trust deeper. When you stop pointing fingers and start taking responsibility for your part in every dynamic, friction drops and connection increases. Your rules clarify boundaries, reducing mixed signals and creating more respectful interactions. People know what to expect from you and when to expect it. Shared expectations eliminate most relationship conflicts before they start. Your courage practice enables the hard conversations that deepen relationships. You can ask for what you need, say no without guilt, and repair quickly when things go wrong. You stop avoiding difficult topics and start addressing them before they become crises. What becomes possible? With these systems in place, you can launch stalled projects within 14 days. That idea you've been sitting on, that business you've been planning, that creative project you've been perfecting, you can now move from concept to reality with speed and confidence. You'll see your first sale, first beta user, first partnership emerge from action rather than analysis. You can make bold asks weekly without the paralysis that used to stop you. Introductions, deals, media opportunities, mentorship requests all become routine parts of your practice rather than extraordinary events requiring perfect conditions. You can enforce boundaries consistently, aligning your calendar with your strategy instead of other people's urgency. Your energy becomes protected, your focus becomes sharp, and your respect increases as people learn they can count on your word. The compound advantage. As you continue practicing these concepts, the results improve while the effort decreases. Habit lowers activation energy until starts feel automatic. What once required willpower now requires only routine. Less friction creates more flow, and your output rises per unit of effort invested. Better rules mean fewer decisions. You stop redeciding the same things repeatedly. Exceptions decline as your systems mature. Decision fatigue fades because you're operating from principles rather than preferences. Feedback increases accuracy as you get better at reading signals and adjusting quickly. Your corrections become faster, your bets become cleaner, and your intuition becomes sharper. You develop what feels like supernatural timing, but it's actually just the result of consistent practice and systematic learning. The Mandela Model. Nelson Mandela exemplifies what's possible when someone transforms personal fear into principled action. Imprisoned for 27 years, he could have emerged bitter, broken, or bent on revenge. Instead, he used his time to rebuild his identity around reconciliation rather than retaliation. His courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was action despite fear, guided by rules that served a vision larger than his personal comfort. He anchored his identity to principle rather than circumstance, choosing action before comfort in every crucial moment. When he became president, reconciliation became his strategic rule, governing every major decision. He understood that long-horizon governance, making choices based on the future you want to create rather than the present you want to escape, was the only path to sustainable change. Mandela's transformation from prisoner to president wasn't magic. It was the result of systematic identity work, principled decision-making, and the courage to act on his values even when it felt impossible. The same principles that guided his extraordinary journey can guide your ordinary one. Your first move. Right now, before you close this book, write 5 future rules. Name them clearly and tie each to a specific trigger. The 24-hour rule for reversible decisions. Sacred blocks for protected deep work time. Bold Friday for weekly courage practice. Upstream fix for preventing recurring problems. Learning loop for extracting lessons from every outcome. Post these rules where you make decisions. Your desk, your phone, your bathroom mirror. Share them with one ally who can help you stay accountable. Make them visible, memorable, and actionable. Then do one minimum viable courage act today. Make the call you've been avoiding. Send the proposal you've been perfecting. Set the meeting you've been postponing. The specific action matters less than the timing. You're proving to yourself that you're now someone who acts on their intentions instead of just thinking about them. Log this action and give yourself a small reward. Check the box, add the tally mark, say done out loud, then schedule tomorrow's start line before you go to sleep tonight. You're not just completing a task, you're installing a new operating system. The line in the sand. This is your moment of choice. You can close this book and return to the comfortable patterns that brought you here. Or you can draw a line in the sand and step across it into a new way of being. Choose builder over bystander. Choose action over analysis. Choose courage over comfort. Choose to move scared, move first, move now. The life you want won't arrive on schedule. It won't wait for perfect conditions or complete clarity. It won't knock on your door and ask permission to enter. It's waiting for you to build it, brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. You have the tools, you have the system, you have the knowledge. The only question that remains is whether you'll use them. Stop surviving. Start building. The world needs what you have to offer, but only if you have the courage to offer it. Your new life begins with your next decision. Make it count.